Hi, I'm Rachel. My sister destroyed my baby's nursery while I was in labor, tearing down decorations, breaking furniture, and leaving a note saying I didn't deserve to be a mother. She thought my husband being deployed meant she could get away with her jealous rage and I'd be too overwhelmed to fight back. But sometimes justice has a way of arriving when you least expect it. Delivered by a Marine general with 3 stars on his collar and an entire regiment at his command. What happened next didn't just restore my nursery, it showed my sister exactly what happens when you mess with a Marine's family.
Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed. Because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you.
The contractions started at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in September. I was alone in our base housing at Camp Pendleton. My husband, Colonel Marcus Thompson, deployed to Afghanistan for what was supposed to be his final tour before his promotion to Brigadier General. We'd planned everything perfectly. He was scheduled to return 2 weeks before my due date. But babies don't follow military schedules. I managed to call my sister Vanessa, who lived just 20 minutes away in Oceanside, between contractions that were getting stronger and closer together. Despite our complicated relationship, she was the only family I had in California since our parents lived back in Ohio. "Van, it's happening," I gasped into the phone. "The baby's coming and Marcus isn't here." "Oh my God, Rachel, I'll be right there. Don't worry, I'll take care of everything." Vanessa had always been the dramatic one in our family, 3 years older than me, and perpetually convinced that life had dealt her an unfair hand. When I married Marcus 5 years ago, she'd made comments about how lucky I was to land a military officer, how I'd have security and status she'd never have as a struggling real estate agent. But I thought that was just typical sibling rivalry. At the hospital, Vanessa held my hand through 12 hours of labor, called Marcus on the satellite phone when little Emma finally arrived, and even helped me choose the going home outfit from the bag we'd packed weeks earlier. She seemed genuinely excited to be an aunt, taking dozens of photos and posting them on social media with captions about being the best auntie ever. "I can't wait to see Emma in her nursery," Vanessa said as we prepared to leave the hospital 2 days later. "You put so much work into making it perfect." The nursery had been my pride and joy for months. Marcus and I had painted the walls a soft lavender, hung delicate butterfly mobiles, and arranged furniture we'd carefully selected together during his last leave. The rocking chair where I planned to nurse Emma was his grandmother's, a family heirloom he'd shipped from North Carolina. Every detail had been chosen with love. "Would you mind stopping by the house first to make sure everything's ready?" I asked as we loaded Emma into the car seat. "Maybe open some windows, turn on the air conditioning. I want everything to be perfect when we bring her home." Vanessa's smile seemed forced, but she nodded. "Of course, I'll meet you there in an hour." The drive from the hospital to base housing usually took 20 minutes, but I drove slowly, savoring these first moments with my daughter. Emma slept peacefully in her car seat, tiny fists curled against her cheeks, completely unaware that her father was thousands of miles away serving his country. As we approached our house on Semper Fi Road, I noticed Vanessa's car was gone, which struck me as odd since she should have beaten us there. But I figured maybe she'd run out to grab supplies or flowers to welcome us home. Nothing could have prepared me for what I found when I opened the front door. The nursery, my beautiful, carefully planned sanctuary for my daughter, was destroyed. The nursery looked like a tornado had torn through it. The butterfly mobile I'd spent hours assembling lay broken on the floor, its delicate wings scattered like confetti. The rocking chair, Marcus's grandmother's precious heirloom, was overturned, one of its arms snapped clean off. Tiny clothes I'd folded with such care were strewn across the room, some ripped, others trampled with muddy footprints. But it was the note taped to the crib that made my blood run cold. "You don't deserve any of this. You stole the life I should have had. Perfect husband, perfect house, perfect baby. You always get everything, while I get nothing. Maybe now you'll understand what it feels like to have something beautiful destroyed." It was signed with Vanessa's distinctive handwriting. I stood in the doorway holding Emma, my newborn daughter sleeping peacefully against my chest, completely unaware that her safe haven had been turned into a war zone. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone to call Vanessa, but it went straight to voicemail. 20 minutes later, she returned my call with a performance worthy of an Oscar. "Rachel? Oh my God, what happened? I just got your message about the nursery. Are you okay? Is Emma okay?" "Vanessa, I found your note." My voice was steady, but my heart was pounding. There was a pause that lasted too long. "What note? Rachel, you're scaring me. You just had a baby. Maybe the hormones are making you confused." The gaslighting was immediate and smooth. "I'm holding the note in my hand, Van. It's in your handwriting. You destroyed Emma's nursery while I was in labor." "That's impossible," she said, her voice rising with what sounded like genuine distress. "I would never do something like that. I love Emma. I love you. Rachel, maybe someone broke in and forged my handwriting to frame me. Have you called the police?" "Don't lie to me, Vanessa." "I'm not lying." Her voice cracked with emotion. "I can't believe you would accuse me of something so horrible. I was at work all morning after leaving the hospital. I have witnesses. My boss can verify I was showing houses to clients." She was good, really good. If I hadn't seen the evidence with my own eyes, I might have believed her. The hurt in her voice sounded real. The confusion seemed genuine. "Rachel, listen to me," she continued, her tone shifting to concern. "You've been through a traumatic experience. Labor, having your first baby with Marcus deployed, all the stress. Sometimes new mothers experience postpartum episodes that can cause paranoia and false memories." False memories. She was suggesting I was having a mental breakdown. "I know what I saw, Vanessa." "Honey, I think you need to talk to someone. A counselor, maybe your doctor. This accusation, it's not rational. I would never hurt you or Emma. I was planning to help you set up the nursery again when you got home." The manipulation was masterful. She had taken my devastation and turned it into evidence of my supposed mental instability. Every word was calculated to make me question my own sanity. "Think about it logically," she pressed. "Why would I destroy something I helped you plan? I was there when you picked out that mobile. I helped you paint those walls. I was excited about being Emma's aunt." For a moment, doubt crept in. The hormones, the exhaustion, the stress of being alone. Could I have misinterpreted something? Could someone else have written that note? But then I looked at the handwriting again. The way she dotted her I's with little circles, the distinctive loop in her G's. This was definitely Vanessa's writing. "I have to go," I said quietly. "Rachel, please don't shut me out. Let me come over. Let me help you figure out what really happened. We can clean up together and—" I hung up before she could finish. Over the next few days, Vanessa's campaign to discredit me intensified. She called our parents in Ohio, spinning a story about my postpartum breakdown and how worried she was about my mental state. "Rachel's been accusing me of terrible things," I heard her tell our mother during a three-way call I wasn't supposed to be listening to. "She thinks I destroyed the baby's room, but Mom, I would never do something like that. I think she's having some kind of psychotic episode." "Maybe we should come out there," Mom said, her voice tight with concern. "If Rachel's having problems—" "I don't think that would help right now," Vanessa interrupted smoothly. "She's very paranoid. She might see your visit as everyone ganging up on her. I'm trying to get her to see a psychiatrist, but she's refusing help." The lies flowed so effortlessly that I almost admired her skill. She was painting herself as the concerned sister, trying to manage a dangerous situation, while I was the unstable new mother who couldn't be trusted. But Vanessa wasn't content with just turning my family against me. She escalated to the military wives community on base. At the commissary 2 days later, I ran into Sarah Chen, whose husband served in Marcus's regiment. She approached me with the kind of careful sympathy usually reserved for tragedy. "Rachel, how are you holding up?" she asked, her voice lowered to a conspiratorial whisper. "Vanessa told me about the incident. I'm so sorry you're going through this. My blood ran cold.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
What incident? The episode with the nursery. She said you had some kind of breakdown and destroyed the baby's room yourself, but you don't remember doing it. She's been so worried about you. I stared at Sarah, feeling the ground shift beneath my feet. She told you I destroyed my own nursery? Sarah's expression became uncomfortable. She said the stress of Marcus being deployed and having the baby alone caused some kind of postpartum psychosis, that you blocked out the memory and blamed her instead. That's not what happened, Sarah. Vanessa destroyed the nursery while I was in labor. She left a note confessing to it. Sarah's face showed the polite skepticism of someone who'd already made up their mind. Rachel, maybe you should talk to someone, the chaplain or one of the doctors on base. Postpartum depression can cause all kinds of... I'm not depressed or psychotic, I interrupted, but I could hear how defensive I sounded. My sister is lying. By the end of the week, I could feel the change in how the other military wives treated me. Conversations stopped when I approached. People smiled with the forced cheerfulness reserved for people they considered unstable. At the base playground, mothers moved their children a little farther away when Emma and I arrived. Vanessa had done more than destroy my nursery. She had systematically destroyed my reputation in the military community that was supposed to be my support system while Marcus was deployed. The final blow came when she showed up at my door with our parents, who had flown in from Ohio without telling me. "Sweetheart," Dad said, his face creased with worry, "we think you need help." "Vanessa's been keeping us updated," Mom added, setting down a suitcase. "We're here to support you through this difficult time." "What difficult time?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "Your breakdown, honey." Vanessa explained how the stress caused you to have an episode and destroyed the nursery, but you've blocked it out and created false memories blaming her. They'd all bought into Vanessa's narrative completely. Even my own parents looked at me like I was fragile, unstable, someone who couldn't be trusted with the truth of my own experiences. "I have the note she left," I said desperately, "in her handwriting. I can show you." "Vanessa explained about the note too," Dad said sadly. "She thinks you might have written it yourself during the episode and forgotten." I was trapped in a perfect psychological prison of Vanessa's design.
The humiliation reached its peak at the base community center during the monthly family readiness group meeting. These gatherings were supposed to be support networks for military families, especially during deployments. I'd been looking forward to them as a way to connect with other military wives who understood the challenges of raising children while their husbands served overseas. I should have stayed home. The moment I walked into the room with Emma in her carrier, conversation stopped. 20 pairs of eyes turned toward me with a mixture of pity and curiosity that made my skin crawl. I recognized most of these women, neighbors, friends I'd shared barbecues with, people who'd helped me prepare for Emma's arrival. Now they looked at me like I was made of glass. "Rachel," said Linda Morrison, the FRG leader whose husband was Marcus's second-in-command. Her voice carried that careful tone people use around mental patients. "How wonderful that you felt up to joining us today." I forced a smile and found a seat near the back, hoping to blend in. But Vanessa had done her work too thoroughly for me to escape notice. "Ladies," Linda continued, addressing the group while stealing glances at me, "before we discuss this month's activities, I want to remind everyone that we're a support community. Sometimes our fellow military wives go through difficult periods, especially after childbirth, and it's our responsibility to offer help and understanding." The subtext was clear. Everyone in that room knew she was talking about me. Postpartum depression and psychosis are serious medical conditions, she continued, and I felt heat rise in my cheeks as heads turned to look at me.
They can cause hallucinations, paranoid thoughts, and even aggressive behavior. If you notice a fellow military wife struggling, please reach out to the chaplain or family services. I wanted to sink through the floor. This was supposed to be my community, my support system, and instead it had become a public service announcement about my supposed mental illness. After the formal meeting ended, the real damage began. Small groups formed around the room, and I caught fragments of whispered conversations. Destroyed her own baby's room. Blamed her poor sister. Marcus doesn't even know how bad it's gotten. The last comment made my blood run cold. These women were talking about my husband, speculating about our marriage and whether he knew his wife was unstable. I was gathering Emma's things to leave when Vanessa arrived. She timed her entrance perfectly, appearing just as the meeting was winding down so she could make her grand entrance as the concerned sister. She wore a flowing dress that made her look maternal and nurturing, her hair styled in soft waves that caught the light beautifully. "Rachel," she called out, her voice carrying across the room. "I'm so glad you came today. I was worried you might isolate yourself." Every woman in that room turned to watch our interaction. Vanessa approached me with arms outstretched, pulling me into a hug that felt like a performance for our audience. "How are you feeling today? Any more episodes?" The word hung in the air like an accusation. I pulled away from her embrace, my hands shaking with rage. "I'm fine, Vanessa." "Of course you are, sweetie. That's what's so scary about postpartum psychosis. The person suffering from it doesn't always realize how serious it is." I looked around the room and saw women nodding in agreement, their faces full of pity for Vanessa, the long-suffering sister trying to help her mentally ill sibling. "I didn't have a psychotic episode," I said quietly but firmly. Vanessa's eyes filled with tears that looked completely genuine. "Oh, honey, that's exactly what the doctor said you might say. The mind creates false narratives to protect itself from traumatic memories." She turned to address the room, including everyone in our private conversation. "I'm just trying to get her the help she needs, but she keeps insisting that I destroyed the nursery. It breaks my heart." The performance was flawless. Vanessa stood there looking like a saint, while I looked like an unstable woman in denial about her own mental illness. The breaking point came 3 days later when Marcus finally called. I'd been dreading this conversation, knowing that Vanessa's poison had likely reached him through military channels, long before I could explain what really happened. His voice came through the satellite connection with that slight delay that made conversations feel stilted and unnatural. "Rachel, sweetheart, how we holding up?" There was something different in his tone. Careful, measured, like he was speaking to someone fragile. My heart sank. "I'm okay, Marcus. How are things over there?" "Challenging, but manageable." "Listen, honey, I got a call from Colonel Morrison's wife. She's concerned about you, about your state of mind since Emma was born." Colonel Morrison, Linda's husband, Marcus's second in command. The military chain of communication had worked exactly as Vanessa had planned. "What did she tell you?" I asked, though I already knew. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, and I could hear helicopters in the background reminding me that he was thousands of miles away dealing with life and death situations while I was falling apart at home. "She said you've been struggling with postpartum depression, that you had some kind of episode and destroyed Emma's nursery, but you don't remember doing it." "Rachel, why didn't you tell me you were having problems?" The hurt in his voice was devastating. Not anger, not accusation, just deep sadness that his wife was suffering and he hadn't known. "Marcus, that's not what happened. Vanessa destroyed the nursery while I was in labor. She left a note confessing to it." The silence stretched so long, I thought we'd lost connection. "Rachel?" he said finally, his voice gentle but firm. "Linda said Vanessa has been trying to get you help, that she's been worried sick about you and the baby. She's lying, Marcus. I know how this sounds, but she's been systematically turning everyone against me. Our parents, the wives on base, everyone believes her version instead of mine. Honey, listen to yourself. You're saying that your sister, your parents, and multiple military families are all part of some conspiracy against you. That's not rational thinking. The words hit like physical blows. My own husband, the man who'd promised to stand by me through everything, was questioning my sanity based on secondhand reports from people who'd never bothered to ask for my side of the story. I have proof, Marcus. The note she left is in her handwriting. Linda mentions the note. She said the doctors think you might have written it yourself during a dissociative episode. What doctors? I haven't seen any doctors. Rachel, you're scaring me. The fact that you don't remember seeing doctors is part of what makes this so concerning. Vanessa said she's been trying to get you into treatment, but you keep refusing. I was drowning in lies so thick I couldn't find the surface. Every piece of evidence I offered was reinterpreted as proof of my mental instability. Every denial was seen as confirmation of my delusions. Marcus, I need you to listen to me. Really listen. I am not having a mental breakdown. I am not suffering from postpartum psychosis. Vanessa destroyed our daughter's nursery out of jealousy, and now she's covering it up by making everyone think I'm crazy. Baby, I want to believe you, but everyone who cares about you is saying the same thing. Your sister, your parents, the wives in my unit, they're all worried about you and Emma's safety. Emma's safety? The implication was clear. He thought I might be dangerous to our own child. You think I'd hurt Emma? I think you're sick, Rachel. And sick people sometimes do things they wouldn't normally do. I'm going to arrange for emergency leave. I'm coming home. Don't, I said quickly. Don't ruin your career because Vanessa has convinced everyone I'm insane. My career doesn't matter if my wife and daughter are in danger. The conversation ended with Marcus promising to call back once he'd spoken to his commanding officer about emergency leave. I hung up feeling more alone than I had ever felt in my life. My husband thought I was mentally ill and potentially dangerous. My family believed I destroyed my own baby's room. The military community I'd considered home saw me as an unstable woman who couldn't be trusted. Vanessa had won completely.
That night, as I sat in Emma's destroyed nursery holding my sleeping daughter, something inside me shifted. I was done being a victim of Vanessa's psychological warfare. If she wanted to play games with evidence and manipulation, then I would beat her at her own game. I looked around at the wreckage that had once been my perfect sanctuary for Emma. The broken mobile, the overturned furniture, the torn baby clothes. All of it could be evidence if I approached this strategically instead of emotionally. The first thing I did was document everything. I took dozens of photos from every angle, capturing the destruction in detail. I photographed Vanessa's note, making sure the lighting clearly showed her distinctive handwriting. I even took pictures of the muddy footprints that matched the boots I'd seen her wearing at the hospital. But photos weren't enough. I needed to prove that Vanessa had been lying about her whereabouts and alibis. I started with her real estate office. Vanessa claimed she'd been showing houses to clients on the morning she destroyed the nursery, but I knew her boss, Patricia Williams, from various community events. Patricia was a no-nonsense woman who kept meticulous records. Mrs. Williams, I said when I called her office, I'm trying to verify some information about Vanessa's schedule last Tuesday morning. She mentioned showing properties to clients around 10 a.m. Tuesday morning? Patricia sounded puzzled. Rachel, Vanessa called in sick that entire day. Said she had food poisoning and couldn't work. She didn't show any properties until Thursday. My heart raced. Are you sure? Absolutely. I had to reschedule 3 appointments for her. She sounded terrible on the phone. Really sick. Vanessa had lied about being at work. She deliberately cleared her schedule so she could destroy my nursery while I was giving birth.
Next, I checked the hospital's visitor logs. If Vanessa had really been supporting me through labor as she claimed, there would be records of her comings and goings. What I found was even more damning. According to the logs, Vanessa had signed out of the hospital at 2:47 a.m. on Tuesday morning, almost immediately after Emma was born. She hadn't returned until Thursday evening when she came to help me take Emma home. That gave her almost 2 full days to plan and execute the destruction of my nursery. But I needed more than just proof of her lies. I needed to understand her pattern of behavior because I was beginning to suspect this wasn't the first time Vanessa had sabotaged something important to me. I started thinking back through our relationship, looking for signs I'd missed. The time my wedding dress had mysteriously developed a stain the night before my wedding. Vanessa was the one to discover it and rush to help clean it. The job interview I'd lost because the interviewer received an anonymous call questioning my character references. Vanessa had been the only person who knew the exact time of that interview. I pulled out my laptop and began making a timeline of incidents over the past 5 years. Small things I'd attributed to bad luck or coincidence suddenly formed a pattern of sabotage that coincided with major milestones in my life. The more I researched, the more I realized that Vanessa's jealousy had been systematic and calculated. She hadn't just destroyed my nursery on impulse, she'd been undermining my happiness for years. But my biggest breakthrough came when I remembered something Vanessa had said at the hospital. She'd taken dozens of photos of Emma and posted them on social media with captions about being the best auntie ever. Those posts would be time-stamped, and they would prove exactly when she left the hospital. I logged into her Facebook account. She'd always used the same password for everything, our childhood dog's name, and found the posts. The metadata showed they'd been uploaded at 3:15 a.m. from her phone, which meant she'd been driving home from the hospital at the exact time the nursery was being destroyed. But wait, that timing was impossible. If she'd left the hospital at 2:47 a.m. and the posts were uploaded at 3:15 a.m., she couldn't have been home destroying the nursery yet. The drive from the hospital to my house took at least 25 minutes. Unless she hadn't gone home at all. Unless she'd driven straight to my house to begin her work. I had caught her in a critical timeline error that proved premeditation. Armed with Vanessa's timeline inconsistencies, I knew I needed more concrete proof before confronting anyone. If I was going to challenge her narrative, I needed evidence so overwhelming that no one could dismiss it as the ramblings of an unstable woman. My next step was the base security footage. Military housing had cameras at key intersections and entry points, and I knew there would be recordings of Vanessa's car coming and going during the time she claimed to be elsewhere. I called Sergeant Mike Rodriguez in base security, someone Marcus had introduced me to at various military functions. Mike had always been friendly and professional, and I hoped he might help me access the footage. "Mrs. Thompson," Mike said when I explained what I needed, "I'd love to help, but I can't just hand over security footage without proper authorization. You'd need a request from your husband or a formal investigation. What if I could prove that a crime was committed? Would that change things?" Mike was quiet for a moment. "If you have evidence of criminal activity, you should file a report with the military police. They could request the footage as part of an official investigation." I thanked Mike and hung up, realizing I needed to build an even stronger case before involving official channels. One inconsistent timeline wasn't enough. I needed multiple sources of evidence that painted a clear picture of Vanessa's deception. I decided to check with our neighbors. Military housing was close-knit, and someone must have seen Vanessa's car in our driveway during the time she claimed to be showing houses across town. Mrs. Patterson, who lived directly across the street, was watering her garden when I approached with Emma in her stroller. "Rachel, dear, how are you feeling?" she asked with the same careful concern everyone seemed to use around me lately. "I'm doing better, thank you. Mrs. Patterson, I have an odd question. Do you remember seeing my sister's silver Honda in our driveway last Tuesday morning, the day Emma and I came home from the hospital?" Mrs. Patterson's face lit up. "Oh yes, I remember that car. It was there quite early, around
3:30 or 4 in the morning. I was up with my insomnia, looking out the window, and I thought it was strange for someone to be visiting at that hour. My heart raced. You're sure it was Tuesday morning? Absolutely. I remember because I was worried something might be wrong with the baby, having a visitor so early. But then I saw your sister get out of the car, and I figured she was just helping you prepare for coming home. Mrs. Patterson had just confirmed that Vanessa was at my house destroying the nursery while she was supposed to be home sick with food poisoning. I thanked her and continued my investigation. 2 houses down, I found Mr. Kim, a retired Marine who kept meticulous watch over the neighborhood. That silver Honda was there for about 2 hours, he told me when I'd asked. I noticed because the woman was carrying things back and forth from the house. Looked like she was cleaning up or organizing something. Seemed like a good sister, helping you get ready for the baby. 2 independent witnesses had seen Vanessa at my house during the exact time frame when she was allegedly too sick to work. The timeline was becoming ironclad. But I needed one more piece of evidence, something that would prove intent and malice, not just opportunity. I remembered that Vanessa always carried a small notebook where she wrote down her thoughts and plans. She'd had it since high school, calling it her dream journal, where she worked through her feelings about life's disappointments. If I could find that notebook, it might contain evidence of her planning or her real feelings about my pregnancy and Emma's birth. The problem was getting access to it without breaking into her apartment. But then I remembered that Vanessa often left her purse in her car when she came to visit, claiming the military base was safe enough not to worry about theft. I called her and suggested we meet for coffee to work through our issues.
With all my evidence compiled, I knew I needed to take this to someone with real authority who could cut through Vanessa's web of lies. But first, I decided to dig deeper into her background to understand if this pattern of behavior extended beyond just me. I called my college roommate, Jennifer, who had stayed in touch with some of our mutual friends from school. If Vanessa had done this before, someone might remember similar incidents. "Rachel, it's so good to hear from you," Jennifer said. "How's married life and the new baby?" After catching up briefly, I asked about Vanessa. "Jen, do you remember anything strange about Vanessa during college? Any incidents with roommates or friends that seemed off?" Jennifer was quiet for a moment. "Actually, now that you mention it, there was something. Remember your senior year when you got that internship at the marketing firm downtown?" I did remember. It had been a competitive position that would have looked great on my resume. "Vanessa applied for the same internship," Jennifer continued, "but when you got it instead of her, suddenly the company received an anonymous tip that you had lied on your application about your GPA." My blood ran cold. I never lied about my GPA. "I know you didn't, but by the time you proved your transcripts were accurate, they'd already given the position to someone else. Vanessa acted so sympathetic about your bad luck, but I always thought the timing was suspicious." Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. Vanessa had been sabotaging my opportunities for years, always positioning herself as the supportive sister while secretly working to tear me down. "There's more," Jennifer added. "Do you remember when you were dating that guy Tom, junior year? The one you really liked?" "Of course. He suddenly stopped calling me after we'd been seeing each other for 2 months. I ran into him at a party later that semester. He said someone had called him claiming to be your friend, telling him you were seeing other guys and just using him. He believed it and decided to cut contact rather than confront you." My hands were shaking as I took notes. Vanessa had been destroying my relationships systematically, and I'd never suspected her because she was always there to comfort me afterward. But Jennifer's most shocking revelation was yet to come. "Rachel, there's something else I never told you. The night before your wedding, I saw Vanessa in your hotel room going through your things. When I asked what she was doing, she said she was looking for something blue to lend you. But later, I realized your wedding dress had that mysterious stain that almost ruined everything." The stain that had appeared overnight on my wedding dress, forcing us to spend the morning frantically trying to clean it?
Vanessa had caused that too, then played the hero by finding a solution. Armed with this new information, I decided to call Marcus's commanding officer directly. Colonel Harrison had known our family for 3 years and had always been supportive of military spouses. If anyone would listen to evidence over gossip, it would be him. Mrs. Thompson, I understand you've been going through a difficult time. How can I help? Sir, I have evidence that proves I didn't destroy my daughter's nursery. My sister did it while I was in labor, and now she's convinced everyone I'm mentally ill to cover up her crime. There was a pause. That's a serious accusation, Mrs. Thompson. What kind of evidence? I walked him through everything methodically. The timeline discrepancies, the witness statements, the hospital logs, Vanessa's journal entries, and the pattern of sabotage going back years. Colonel Harrison listened without interruption. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Mrs. Thompson, if what you're telling me is true, this isn't just a family dispute. This is criminal behavior that's affecting military families and undermining unit cohesion. Your husband is being considered for promotion to general, and false information about his family's stability could impact his career. That's exactly what I'm afraid of, sir. I'm going to have the military police conduct a formal investigation. Can you compile all your evidence and present it to them tomorrow morning? Finally, someone in authority was taking me seriously.
The military police investigation moved swiftly. Within 48 hours, they had confirmed everything I discovered and more. The security footage showed Vanessa's car entering the base at 3:17 a.m. on Tuesday morning and remaining at my house for exactly 2 hours and 14 minutes. Her work alibi crumbled under official scrutiny, and the hospital logs confirmed she'd left immediately after Emma's birth. But the MPs had uncovered something even more damaging. Vanessa had been researching postpartum psychosis for weeks before Emma was born, including downloading articles about false memories and psychological breaks. She'd planned not just the destruction, but the entire cover-up narrative. Colonel Harrison arranged for a formal confrontation at base headquarters with myself, Vanessa, my parents, and several military officials present. He'd also managed to arrange a secure video call with Marcus in Afghanistan, who had been briefed on the investigation's findings. Vanessa entered the conference room in base headquarters looking confident, still believing she controlled the narrative. She wore a conservative dress and had styled her hair to look maternal and responsible, the perfect concerned sister. "Thank you all for coming," Colonel Harrison began. "We have completed our investigation into the incident at the Thompson residence, and we have some definitive findings to share." Vanessa's expression remained serene, but I caught a flicker of uncertainty when she noticed the stack of evidence folders on the table. "First," Colonel Harrison continued, "we have security footage that contradicts Miss Williams' stated whereabouts on the morning in question. The large screen at the front of the room displayed timestamp footage of Vanessa's silver Honda entering the base at 3:17 a.m. Even in the grainy night vision footage, her license plate was clearly visible. Vanessa's face went pale, but she maintained her composure. "I told you I came by to help prepare the house for Rachel's return. I never denied being there." "According to your employer, you called in sick that entire day, claiming food poisoning. Yet the footage shows you are well enough to drive and engage in physical activity for over 2 hours. The next piece of evidence was the hospital visitor logs displayed on screen with Vanessa's signature clearly visible at 2:47 a.m. departure time. Furthermore, the colonel continued, we found this in your personal notebook. The screen showed photographs of Vanessa's journal entries, her handwriting clearly visible, time to show her what real loss feels like, and she needs to understand that her perfect life can be destroyed just like mine was. My parents gasped audibly. Mom's hand flew to her mouth as she read her older daughter's words, planning to hurt her younger daughter. That's taken out of context, Vanessa said quickly, but her voice was shaking now. I was just venting frustration. Everyone writes things they don't mean when they're upset. Ms. Williams, Colonel Harrison said gravely, we also discovered your internet search history. In the weeks leading up to your sister's due date, You researched postpartum psychosis, memory suppression, and gaslighting techniques. This wasn't an impulsive act, it was premeditated psychological warfare. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Vanessa's carefully constructed lies crumbled in real time as each piece of documentation was presented. On the video screen, Marcus finally spoke, his voice tight with controlled anger. "Vanessa, you made me believe my wife was mentally ill. You made me consider taking emergency leave because I thought she was dangerous to our daughter. You could have destroyed my career and my family. Marcus, You're done," Marcus said firmly. "You will never be welcome in our home again. You will have no contact with my wife or my daughter. Colonel Harrison, I want her banned from the base permanently." Vanessa finally broke, tears streaming down her face as years of jealousy and resentment poured out. "She always got everything, the perfect husband, the perfect life, the respect I never had. I just wanted her to feel what it was like to lose something precious. By targeting a newborn baby's nursery, by attempting to destroy a military family during deployment." My parents sat in stunned silence, finally seeing their older daughter's true nature exposed under the harsh light of evidence.
3 months later, I stood in Emma's completely restored nursery, watching my daughter reach for the new butterfly mobile that Marcus had personally installed after his return from Afghanistan. But this time, the nursery was more than just restored. It was fortified with the love and protection of an entire Marine regiment. The day after the confrontation, word had spread through the military community with the efficiency that only military families possessed. Within hours, my doorbell was ringing constantly as military wives arrived with casseroles, flowers, and heartfelt apologies. The same women who had whispered about my supposed mental illness now embraced me as a fellow warrior who had fought and won against impossible odds. Linda Morrison, the FRG leader who had humiliated me at that meeting, arrived with tears in her eyes and a handwritten letter of apology. "Rachel, I'm so ashamed. We should have listened to you instead of believing gossip. You showed incredible strength fighting back against that manipulation." But the most meaningful transformation came from my parents. They had flown back to Ohio in stunned silence, but called me every day for weeks, trying to process how they had been so thoroughly deceived by one daughter's lies about the other. "Sweetheart," Dad said during one of our daily calls, "I keep thinking about all the times Vanessa positioned herself as your protector while she was actually your attacker. How did we miss it?" "She was very good at what she did," I replied, the same words I'd used to comfort others who felt guilty about being manipulated. "She studied psychology, Dad. She knew exactly which buttons to push." The legal consequences for Vanessa were swift and severe. She was charged with destruction of property, filing false reports, and something I'd never heard of before: conduct prejudicial to military family welfare. Apparently, the military took very seriously any civilian actions that undermined the stability of military families during deployment. She pled guilty to all charges and was sentenced to 2 years in prison, 5 years of probation, and a permanent ban from all military installations. She was also required to pay restitution for the destroyed nursery items and attend mandatory psychological counseling. But perhaps the most meaningful consequence was professional. Word of her manipulative behavior reached her real estate office, and Patricia Williams terminated her employment immediately. "I can't have someone working for me who lies and manipulates people," Patricia told me when she called to apologize for initially providing Vanessa's false alibi. Marcus returned home 2 weeks after the confrontation, having completed his tour and received his promotion to Brigadier General. His first act was to personally oversee the complete restoration of Emma's nursery, calling in favors from Marines across the base. "Sir, you don't need to do this yourself," I told him, as he assembled Emma's new crib with the precision of a military operation. "Yes, I do," he said firmly. "This is my family, my responsibility, and my honor to restore what was taken from us." The new nursery was more beautiful than the original, but it was the meaning behind it that made it special.
The mobile was assembled by Sergeant Rodriguez from base security. The rocking chair, a replacement for Marcus's grandmother's broken heirloom, was crafted by the base woodworking shop as a gift to our family. The walls were painted by military wives who wanted to show their support. Emma's room had become a symbol of what happened when you attacked a Marine's family. The entire regiment rallied to protect and restore what was damaged. As I watched Emma sleep in her new crib, I reflected on what I'd learned. Vanessa had tried to destroy me during my most vulnerable moment, using my own family and community against me. But she underestimated the power of truth, the strength of evidence, and the protective instincts of a military family. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't getting even. It's showing someone exactly how much they underestimated you and watching an entire regiment prove them wrong.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.